It's a very difficult thing today to be invested in anything. It's easy to be invested in a lot of utterly nonsensical, ridiculous, utterly, at times, balloony ideas and what have you. Yes, we can invest ourselves in a lot of things that seem to will justify our life force and energy and time. But our heart knows that that is not true. And we cannot lie to that. That organ doesn't like lying. It needs to know for sure that whatever it gives oneself to, then it has purpose. And in our day and age, it's the most difficult thing to do.
Nearly a year ago, I was in Mexico and I asked for reflection. Mm-hmm. One place that landed was around, like I want to be in a relationship, and then I was like also feeling this sense of this sort of incapability around my work. The one thing is like earlier, or like in May, I was like getting frustrated with people surrounding me, and I was like wanting to write some of my understandings because I was just like, I feel like I have something to say. So I started to write it, and then I was kind of diverging into all these different directions and burning myself out, which is kind of like a microcosm for a recurring process I've been in. And then another context is like, when I grew up as a kid, my dad would have like all these unfinished projects. And so I feel like in some way I've inherited perhaps ADHD, which I don't know, people give that different degrees of reality.
You're saying you have inherited from your father?
Yeah, like a pattern, like you'd have all these unfinished things around, like there's airplane frame in the garage and plans for this and that. So that's kind of like one part of it. And the other is kind of the question I want to start writing about, which I also curious your reflections on, is like also, like some, in Mexico, there's also talking about war and peace. And then I noticed in other talks I've heard recorded, you've kind of talked about there's this one where you're talking about breaking through boundaries, kind of like these historical processes of, for instance, like Alexander the Great conquering, and there being like somehow that being a developmental process for history. And so then I kind of wondered, maybe that's sort of like Hegelian. So like Hegel, and then apparently he saw Napoleon and he was just like, oh, that's the world's spirit riding on horseback. And then like Tolstoy talking about that same event, he doesn't really like Napoleon and thinks he's kind of self-absorbed and out of touch, and that maybe there's some other process that's happening, like people move east and then they move west. There's just kind of these tides of people, and and then I kind of wonder about, like in the culture, social media, I've wondered, is there ways that similarly with the kinds of attitudes people have, if there's these like weather or patterns, like there's this hurricane that just went through, is there something similar that happens in collectives of people? And then, people have described that maybe there's archetypes that express through societies, and then there's like kind of this word of like egregores, or are there kind of like is there sort of phenomenon of group like spirits that, or these forces that move through societies? Or so what do I do with myself as a person that like I want to express myself in the world and create things, but I find myself, my disposition I run into as a problem.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that you have brought in, and I understand why you did that, because without this, right, kind of, it will not have what you bringing out into the open as an inquiry. It will not be full in terms of the implications of what it means to be alive today, right? What it means to be you today, right? Particularly because this whole conversation that we live at the end of history, right? That a red thread is now running through, that we reach the end of history. Eric Hobsbawm, UK-based historian, addressed this at the turn of the century, literally on the eve of, as we were in 1999, that we're entering the era, the phase, or the time, when, effectively speaking, history ends. Why that is because with all the things combined, there's a lacking of the perspective, because everything happens in real time, right? So there is never a possibility to step back and have an overview. So this end of history, this brings a lot of sense of utter purposelessness of it all. Because what motivates us in life the most, and I presume for a young man like yourself, who is embedded with intellect, intelligence, right? There has to be some kind of raison d'etre, some reason. Without it, it's as if something is taken out. It's as if you can't just root yourself, you can't just base your actions and your aspirations on some uncertain grounds. It has to really, you have to be invested, isn't it? And invested with your whole heart. It's a very difficult thing today to be invested in anything. It's easy to be invested in a lot of utterly nonsensical, ridiculous, utterly, at times, balloony ideas and what have you. Yes, we can invest ourselves in a lot of things that seem to be, will justify our life force and energy and time, but our heart knows that that is not true. And we cannot lie to that. That organ doesn't like lying. It needs to know for sure that whatever it gives oneself to, then it has purpose. And in our day and age, it's the most difficult thing to do. So what you are speaking to here, you are speaking to the generational, epochal dilemma. It's not just you or me. All of us are plucked by the same set of circumstances. Where do you root your aspirations today?
So I remembered another element is like I've been interested in this developmental biology, and there's a scientist who's really great, Michael Levin, and anyway, he talks about neurons and like would a neuron know that it's a part of something bigger? And he has this like cartoon of two neurons talking about each other, and one's just like, or talking to each other, and like one's just like, oh no, it's all just random events, and then one's just like, no, I think there's a greater purpose. And so similarly, I guess that's part of the other question, like what I was trying to allude to is what is, yeah, you're hitting on is like, what is happening, like how to be a part of something good, or like sense of dharma, given all this complexity.
Well, that's exactly what I'm speaking to, you see. So first to begin to reflect, I want to underscore how messed up you are, right? So you know the full extent of the predicament, right? So that you don't just bring the question, but like, yeah, there's no ground whatsoever. You are floating, you are soaring in the void. You see, this is the realization that, effectively speaking, you have nothing to hold on to because you are born to a no one's land. We all are here bereft of the true reality. This is the reality of the situation. Everything is a phantasmagoria. We serve God knows what not. And what meant to be served is seldom acknowledged. So this is the reality of the situation. So your task is here nothing short of the proverbial or mythical. Nothing short. It's like the ancient myths, whatever culture they belong to. It's like this guy, he's like a shepherd, he's just this and that, and then suddenly he has to become a hero. You know, he's like, okay, come here. You're going to go and reclaim the, a golden fleece or something. Amaze your command, Get your bodies together and off you go. And the journey begins. So this is the reality of situation. So there's no such thing. All this is like, it was all fun, I tell you that, to read all these existentialists in the late teens, in early 20s, right? The time has passed now. And the reality situation is much more acute now. All this is when we had the time to twiddle our thumb, and kind of like circumambulate our belly button to what we do, what we don't. None of that. The polarization already took place. The Kurukshetra already assembled. People are already facing each other. I mean, parties, players. No, it's already, you can't even decide which one you're going to take. It's been done. It's been done. This is what this whole thing is. So what it requires is to forge oneself out of that and serve without reservation that what you believe in, nothing else, you see? So this is why you hear this maybe reoccurring theme of that, what samurai represents. Samurai is a man of service. That's the true definition of samurai. It's the one who is in service of something greater than himself. Something greater than himself. And he finds purpose in that and sticks to that. But the era of the samurai is gone. That's why these movies are and these novels and this leitmotif is so moving. Not just for Japanese people. It's very moving because suddenly at the end of the Edo period, all this class of warriors who were down to the 12th century, century upon century upon century, the way of the sword from father to son was given. How many lives abruptly ends and Japan embraces the globalization, cuts with the past, and the whole class goes out of the window. This is why it is very moving as a leitmotif. You see, classless people, they find themselves to be on a wasteland of history in their own culture, where prior to that, they were the ones who were supposed to safeguard and be the very, very kernel that supports the culture from internal and external enemies. That's what warriors always served. Warrior, the term warrior is an ancient term, archetypal, and every man is a warrior. There are different archetypes that we all carry. Warrior is one of them, and a very important one. And there's no place for a warrior in our culture. There's no place. Unless you join the military, you see? Unless you join the military and become a soldier, there is no place for that in our day and age. But we're speaking about the archetypes here. We're speaking about the foundational character, what it means to be man today, what it means to be alive as a man. And one of the most important aspects of every man is duty. That's what Dharma here represents, duty. You see? Every epic you read, that's what exalts. Every epic exalts that quality. Manhood in man is duty. This is why I'm saying that you need to first realize the extent to how messed up the world and you are with that, to see it fully. So it's not just a trivial affair of this and that, the full extent of that, so that to be able to summon up what is required on your part, to stand and rise. It's not about what hobby to give yourself to, or what cause to start backing up. Or no, you have to truly rediscover first what it actually means to be a warrior at the time where there is no place for one. What it means to have that character. You see? Then it's nothing to do with finishing jobs or not jobs. You see what I mean? Because one of the aspects of a warrior is completing every task, no matter what that is. Completing it. Being fully present. 200% present to whatever is there. Irrespective of how it feels, in terms of how one likes this or not, one is fully present to whatever rises there in a given moment in time that requires your attention and your participation. This is the spirit of the warrior. And all of us men were warriors at one time or another. Believe it or not. Because that was the way of life. Yes, labor was divided. There were craftsmen, the artisans, the peasants, and there were warriors, and there were custodians, the priestly caste. You see? And it is that what seems to be the most in jeopardy today in us. Not knowing where to apply this. Not knowing where to give that force, because that force comes from deep belly here. It comes from that depth, you see, where like we summon up our courage, where we lay everything aside, asunder, all our limitations, all our fears, facing them off. So there is no such thing as answering this question in respect or with regard to do's or don'ts, or, I have this or that. It's finished. It's done. It's truly done. We're living now. The whole thing is spun out now. It's like a culmination. We're witnessing it now. In a way, the characters, everyone, whoever is, whatever that is, whatever you summoned up, whatever everyone came, already positions us at either side of history, at either side of a given battlefield. You see what I'm trying to say? So, where to give your attention, where to give your emphasis? You see? If you reflect on this, you will realize that it is first tending to these qualities, and then it doesn't matter what you give your attention to, because you're fully present. Whatever that is, it may be the most mundane, it may be insignificant on the outside, it may not feel heroic enough to the passerby. But if you are fully present to that, to the degree with which you summon up all your life force, all yourself, that's what it means. Because that's the quality of the warrior. And this is what is lacking today. You see? Because life became too soft, too cushioning. It's like boredom or laziness. It breeds spineless men, you see, where decisions are made on our behalves. And we are just like, no. Just reflect on that. See what facets it touches. See what this brings up.
I mean, the immediate impact I'm having in my body is like, oh man, I need a rest. But it's an inquiry. What qualities? That's what I took away. I'm like, what are the qualities?
Yeah, maybe you need to take a rest. Sure. Rest from what?
I mean, that's what I was mentioning, the kind of like one thing I've been sorting out in my life is, as I mentioned, there's something around my routines and that I'll apply myself to work and then get tired, and there's different needs that are unmet. But if anything, I've kind of had in my, I don't know, there's this like famous drawing I like of one of the Norse gods who has his arm in Fenrir's mouth. And so there's something about, I mean, that's to me a masculine image, but there's something like, I think I've at least been good at disassociating some part of like my needs in the sense of wanting to do something heroic. So, I mean, part of what I am motivated to be here about is this, the kind of the space works out preconceptions, helps me get closer to the source of things. I don't know if that made sense. I kind of rambled a bit, but the wariness is this, the kind of routines I have around pushing myself and then wanting to achieve a lot, like through my mind, and then like reaching my limitations, and I kind of go in and out of that. So being more with a rhythm that is consonant with my body, but then, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I had a very, like my father is very critical when I was a child and also narcissistic. So I just have trying to prove myself has been kind of like a ongoing thing. It's tiring process.
But do you hear yourself?
What about?
No, just in general. You hear what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So, like all this you hear means it's like you're psychoanalyzing yourself, and right, you're already doing that job, right?
Uh-huh.
My father was this, was critical, right? Now I want to compensate. This is not what we're talking about. Everyone is messed up. This is what I said to you. My first words were, you have to realize the full extent of the mess. Okay? First you realize the full extent. That's how you work your way out. Not just like this and that. You see? So I can't swear because, like, in this immersion I should not swear at all. But you kind of like inviting, you know? Yeah. So I'm looking for the alternative terms. Just reflect on this, what it means. You mentioned also archetypes, right? Archetypes here, archetypes there. Prove yourself. Express yourself. And I'm saying to you, at some point, you have to put blankets like this here, so that you can stride without distraction. Like a horse. On the battlefield, horse should not have peripheral vision. You have to have that, you see? And it's not a tunnel vision either. This is what it means. Funneling your life force, your energy. This is what it means. That's what the warrior quality. Whatever you do, see? That's what's lacking in modern man today. This quality. Connect to that quality, to that archetypal force. And you will see how that will put you in touch with all that what you feel like limitations, this, that, father, you know. Remember we dealt with your father last time, right? Yeah. Do you remember? What was my advice? You can swear. You can. I don't have to.
Exactly your words. It was something like that he can't affect my dignity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you father yourself now. You parent yourself. You father yourself. See? That's what warrior means. You take others in your responsibility. That's what warrior means. The greatest way to grow up is to take care of others. See? There's so many men, they never grow up. They're always looking somewhere to be taken care of. Just the whole life. Just to be taken care of. No, cut that umbilical cord. With the sword, that's the way of the sword. That's where it begins. We don't blame anyone. That's also the way of the sword. Don't have time. When you're fully present, there's no time to blame anything or anyone. You're fully present to whatever that is. That's the way of the warrior. In peaceful time. And when push comes to shove, warrior rises without a blink of an eye to give life, if need be. Why? Because he knows life is eternal. That's the way of the warrior. So you need to tend to your consciousness. You need to truly know you are eternal, not just hypothetically. That's the way of the warrior. See? Then all this kind of like talking to yourself, many questions and all that, this is what I mean. Blink it's here and stride. Okay? Don't try to make sense of this. Hear what I'm saying, hear my voice. I may as well just switch the language. It doesn't matter what language I speak now. Do you hear my voice?
Yeah.
That's good. Do not try to make sense of the words. Hear my voice. This is what I'm relating to you. You brought this in Mexico nearly a year ago. We came full circle now. No more tiptoeing. Okay? It's okay, you're safe. Don't worry. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, good.